Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Silver the Hedgehog here, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos as always. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, PC Steam, and finally the Nintendo Switch. So last time we have basically managed able to finish up the forms of story mode by going through World 9, which does manage to take place in Space Colony, and on top of that, we also did manage to tackle through World 10 by the forms of Dr. Bad-Boon's base. In some cases, the final world in the game, even though for some strange reason is about the fact that the very final stage in story mode somehow got the name change as well as the actual the stage. Well, the stage itself looks a bit familiar, but it's just about the fact that we no longer have ourselves Amusement Vision logo, so instead we got ourselves two hearts representing the forms of not only Mimi, but also with Dr. Bad-Boon as well. So either way though, in addition to that, we also managed able to play as not only Beat, but also Kyozuma, I think is what it says anyway. So today for this video is about the fact that we're going to be selecting the Blue Blur, in some cases Sonic the Hedgehog, to tackle through one of the challenge modes. So as you can see about the fact that not only do we have Super Monkey Ball 1 challenge mode, but also with Super Monkey Ball 2 challenge mode as well. And there's also a special mode, which I think I might as well save that for later. So either way, much like the forms of how it does in the old school Super Monkey Ball games, those levels are differentiated with the forms of difficulty settings. There is the forms of casual mode, which is essentially beginner level, and also we got normal mode, which stands for advanced, and expert is obviously expert, as well as master mode. But also, as you can see, there's also a fifth difficulty, as you can see, by the forms of Marathon, which stands for Ultimate Difficulty, which meaning about the fact that you have to tackle every single stage in one particular run. However, I was able to try to go for a Marathon mode, but I was able to take it easy by going for the forms of individual difficulty, so I don't want to able to spend too long to able to actually go through video-to-video processing goes. So either way, let's get started with the forms of the challenge mode based off from Super Monkey Ball 1 in casual mode. So because of this though, or if I like to say beginner, so as a result, we have to go through not only 10 regular stages, but also 3 extra stages. So yeah, basically, if those of you familiar with the forms of stage layouts like this, then you feel right at home. Especially noticeable, it's nice to see that Sonic can able to actually explore not only the jungle environment, but it's also sky high, as well as eventually by the forms of personally my favorite environment in the entire game, which is of course Monkey Mall, and especially noticeable with the underwater ocean, and the desert, and the Arctic ice, and especially noticeable with the storm temples, and especially noticeable once we get to the master levels. Well, exponentially speaking though, is about the fact that I was originally trying to able to actually just to show you guys individual characters per the forms of the difficulty setting. However though, I'm also able to actually say this right now, that I think I'm also able to stick around with Sonic the Hedgehog for the majority of Sonic the Super Monkey Ball 1 challenge mode, because as soon as we get to Super Monkey Ball 2 challenge mode, I will promise you guys, I will quickly show you guys what Tails actually looks like. Especially noticeable about the fact, no matter what though, that as far as extra characters as far as I'm concerned, we'll pretty much have to save that up until whenever we get to the bonus mode. To be more specifically, the special challenges, ranging between not only reverse mode, but it's also with the forms of, well, I think there are like, I don't know, 6 challenges all in all. So it could be the possibility I could probably be able to show you guys every single characters, but either way though, time will tell, especially noticeable about the fact that at this point in time, we're getting very close towards the end of this week. So because of this though, because speaking of which though, it's about the fact that I can assure you, today's date of course there is the 16th of July today, in this case in 2023 today, and relatively speaking, we're now on to the halfway point in terms of July before we move on to the 8th month, which appears to be August. So I don't think there's going to be any surprising moments during the forms of August this time around to me though. Well, it wasn't until when it gets to the point until September rolls around, obviously about the fact that we'll get ourselves the physical version of not only Pikmin 1, but also with Pikmin 2 on a special bundle. And on top of that, when October rolls around, my god, it will be massive, and especially noticeable with November as well. So even then though, we're actually getting, you know, very close to the point where the fact that we can now able to actually start to get hyped about the forms of other gaming stuff once again, when that particular certain games do usually comes out. So, even though originally I was expecting to try to able to pre-order Sonic Superstars, but either way though, still no luck of the forms of the actual release date as of now, especially noticeable because relatively speaking though about the fact that it's still very weird how not only Super Mario Bros. Wonder, but also Sonic Superstars will be releasing in exactly the same year as each other. Like, I mean, what is this like? A similar situation as the forms of not only Super Mario World, but also with Sonic the Hedgehog, the one that started it all, when it comes to the console wars department, at least if I was assuming so anyway. So, and of course, if you couldn't tell already about the fact that, well, every time whenever you manage able to stumble across to a point where if you keep falling a lot, as to be expected, if you come across into a helper functionality, where basically, if you dare turn that on, what happens was, not only does it make certain levels a bit easier for you, but also don't forget, if you do activate the helper function, it can't take you to the extra levels for some reason. So because of this though, you know, think of like the forms of, you know, the good old days of Super Monkey Ball games, where basically, specifically in Super Monkey Ball 1, that in order able to actually access to beginner extra stages in Super Monkey Ball 1, same applies to the forms of advanced extra levels as well, you can't afford to lose a life, because otherwise, if you fell out once, there is no way you can able to actually access them. But, thankfully though, during the forms of being expert, despite how difficult that difficulty can be in the original Super Monkey Ball, that if you dare use a continue, you can't go to the extra stages, including master stages as well. So relatively speaking though, that could be a result of the ultimate challenge. So, whilst thankfully in this game in particular though, that if you manage able to keep on like dying, well, it doesn't really matter, because obviously thanks to the forms of the achievement system, thankfully you don't have to necessarily try to worry about missing out on a couple of stages, unless if you accidentally activate the helper function, because otherwise though, it'll be a super guide mode basically. So because of that though, short things worth noting for is about the fact that if you do manage to activate the helper function as well, obviously it does not count on your rankings, so usually for online leaderboards, and you probably name the rest of it. So yeah, for casual difficulty, it's actually pretty easy for the sake of time, especially noticeable we're already familiar with those specific levels since in Super Monkey Ball 1, but now this time with the forms of different physics as well as different control styles. So because of this though, yeah, because potentially speaking though, I was expecting to able to try utilize the GameCube controller for my GameCube controller adapter, but I still haven't got it hooked up yet, especially noticeable. Maybe I might as well do at some point in the future if we do tackle through harder stages, but either way though, not now anyway. So either way, speaking of which though, is about the fact that as you notice, on the final level, in casual level, to be more specifically, based off one of those extra stages, that, actually kind of think about it, there's actually two levels you might notice, that the level called Hitter, no longer has that particular barrier, so it just gets a regular goal and that's it, just constantly spinning and nothing else. So either way, I thought it was a little bit odd to be able to have that inclusion. And on top of that, during the forms within a final level in casual mode, assuming of course if you don't activate the helper function of course, basically it's about the fact that it did somehow manage to able to replace the AV logo to a banana silhouette. And it does have its different name as well, which as it turns out, it no longer has AV logo's name, so instead it's now being replaced by banana plate. So kind of weird. I'm guessing it's probably because, usually relatively speaking, that, you know, Amusement Vision is no longer in existence anymore, which is a shame, honestly, because I would love to be able to bring that company back to make the good old days of Monkey Ball stuff again, but it's kind of unfortunate it does not seem to be able to be the case. So, oh yeah, what I thought was a little bit strange is that usually, relatively speaking though, unlike in the original Super Monkey Ball 1, it's especially noticeable about the fact that essentially as you can tell, we're now on normal mode, where basically it stands for advanced difficulty, like going through 30 regular stages plus 5 extra stages. So as a result, about the fact that the actual time limit for bonus basic is pretty much unchanged, or potentially speaking though, when it comes to the forms of advanced difficulty, that in the original Super Monkey Ball game, basically you do have 30 seconds, whilst in here, it's now basically stuck with 60 seconds. So, not exactly sure how that's gonna be the case for this point, but either way though, it's been about a very long while since Sensei have last played the, not only the original Super Monkey Ball, but also with Super Monkey Ball Deluxe as well. And speaking of which though, it's about the fact that, just like it forms of how it does it not only in Super Monkey Ball 1, and also Super Monkey Ball 2 and Deluxe, they can able to actually tackle for those levels in a chronological order. However, unlike it forms of how it does it on, Super Monkey Ball Deluxe, I should say, is about the fact that usually sometimes in certain levels, like Choice for instance, that basically is almost a shape like a guitar, basically. And basically, that particular level, in Deluxe anyway, just somehow takes place in Sky High for some reason. I'm guessing because they don't able to get too repetitive, they're able to actually just have to go for the exactly the same bonus stage over and over again, depending on what difficulties you select. So, for instance, about the fact that during the course of beginner mode in Super Monkey Ball Deluxe, that basically though, you only come across into bonus basic once in beginner mode, and that's it. And if you go into advanced difficulty, you only come across into bonus wave once, and same applies with bonus bumpy as well. And if you go into expert mode, you only come across into bonus grid and bonus hunting, I think so anyway, just once. So relatively speaking though, there's no repeats every once in a while. So relatively speaking, in this game in particular, we're going back to the good old days of Super Monkey Ball days on the GameCube. So that might be seems the case. And also, I don't know suppose if you noticed, but we no longer have ourselves this little awesome jazzy music in the background based off from Super Monkey Ball bonus stages, which is kind of sucks honestly, because instead we got ourselves a remixed music based off from Super Monkey Ball 2 bonus stage music, which I don't mind about it too much. And whoa, look at this environment of Monkey Mall. I actually love the actual color vibrance, as you can tell. And especially noticeable, it kind of sucks that we can't hear the good old classic tune yet. But I'm sure enough, whenever we get to the forms of the bonus challenges, I promise you guys, I will be able to actually eventually, or potentially speaking, if we go into the forms of the Super Monkey Ball 2 challenge mode, at some point until next couple of weeks or so, basically, I will be able to actually change the musical soundtracks into classic variations, because obviously, I have a lot of nostalgia memories too. So either way, when it comes to everything else for certain stages alike, obviously you have to keep this in mind. It's about the fact that you have to be careful of the forms of not only for its momentum, but also with the forms of the control differences as well. Because relatively speaking, there is one in particular level coming up that is usually not only in the original stage mode, which as it turns out it's like the original version of the already existing level that we've already been into, but it's also short things worth noting for is about the fact that I think relatively speaking, that basically is about the fact that in DX mode, which conveniently enough, certain deluxe levels are in a separate stage selection screen, which as a result, it's no longer going to be part of the forms of well, for those individual challenge modes or anything else like that. So, kind of strange honestly, but either way though, I'm guessing because the forms of the fact that, well, they just want to go back into the good old days as far as I'm usually concerned with that stuff, despite different physics and stuff. So, anyways, let's go through here, and we can able to move on. So, anywho though, and also short things worth noting for is about the fact that, relatively speaking, that's obviously about the fact, as I said before, there's no need to worry about keep on getting the game over now, because obviously this game does have infinite amount of lives, as well as infinite amount of continues, which is always a huge plus, meaning about the fact that once we get to the forms of the expert mode, especially noticeable with the master mode as well, thankfully we don't need to worry about a lot of frustration. It's just about the fact that when it comes to certain missions that you have to complete, my lord, these missions are, well, not only time-consuming, but it's also about the fact that some of them are actually very difficult. Like, for instance, about the fact that you need to able to, well, in story mode's case, you need to able to activate certain, or touch certain, different colored doors, or goals, for that matter. Like, for instance, in, Inchworms, that you know about the fact that I keep on dying a lot, because I was hoping to get the red goal, but usually, relatively speaking though, sometimes the momentum just screws me up. So, either way though, we'll discuss more details about that once we get into the expert mode. Presumably until next weekend, if possible, because I don't think it's possible that, spoiler alert for those of you not realize, is that it doesn't seem it's going to be possible for me to not only tackle through, not only expert mode, but also with master mode in exactly the same part. So, because unfortunately though, about the fact that we have to go for separate parts, so, yeah, it's gonna point things out right from the start, so... Anyways, I really love this particular trick, especially noticeable because normally in the original Super Monkey Ball game, sometimes it can be very tricky to execute certain hardcore shortcuts on anything because, relatively speaking, there was no way you can be able to take control of the camera. Whilst thankfully in this game this time around, and I think maybe same applies to Banana Blitz HD, or perhaps even maybe Banana Splits for that matter, you can now able to actually take control of the camera if you're struggling to able to see what's up ahead. So that would be pretty recommendable though, especially noticeable if you're struggling to able to go through certain stages, if you are having a hard time to turn around. So, but either way though, I think I've already pointed things out. I would say during the forms have been the beginning portion of story mode or something. Well, I've got no words to think about it. So either way, oh yeah, and there's also short things worth noting for as well. Only 8 more days to go until the Super Mario Bros. Movie on DVD and Blu-ray, the UK's release, is going to be approaching. So either way, and yeah, very excited about that. And especially noticeable at that specific time is that I think we've only got about 5 more days to go until Pikmin 4 finally gets its release on a Nintendo Switch. I'm not exactly sure what the reviews is going to turn out, but I'm sure that we'll let either Ray or Sonic were able to mention more about it during the course of it, not only in Sonic Frontiers, but also with Super Mario RPG as well. So either way though, that must have been said something, I suppose. So, and here we are going back into the underwater environment once again, except with this gorgeous visuals, except I kind of wish if I was going to able to change the actual music soundtrack to, you know, the classic tunes. But then again, we'll pretty much have to save that up until once we get to Super Monkey Ball 2 Challenge Mode as, well, something related to the forms of, I don't know, Tails, as far as I'm usually concerned. Because normally, potentially speaking though, is about the fact that unlike in the actual main story mode, that I somehow managed to switch characters off screen, whilst I feel like I'm almost going to be able to see Sonic in action for the majority of Super Monkey Ball 1 Challenge Mode. Now once we get to Super Monkey Ball 2 Challenge Mode, I will show you guys Tails in action, just to see him on, you know, the cute yellow ball, because as far as I'm aware, similar to the forms of how it does in Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz HD, obviously Classic Sonic has got himself the actual blue ball, so it makes a little bit more sense, because obviously Sonic is blue and all in all. So either way though, and much like the forms of how it does on the previous Super Monkey Ball games, since I would classify for saying the last time we actually saw those warp goals was back in Super Monkey Ball Banana Splits, despite how nerve-wrackingly difficult that can be on Banana Splits, because despite the fact I still haven't really gone back into Super Monkey Ball Banana Splits these days, especially because, my god, the difficulty is way too much for me. Especially noticeable, you have to rely on stage environments, so because of that though, I felt it was a bit too much for my liking. So thus with the forms of the actual analog sticks are a bit too tiny for my liking, so it makes things a bit hard to control, which kind of feels like a similar situation as in, you know, the PSP version of Super Monkey Ball Adventure, and thus, usually in Super Monkey Ball Adventure on the PSP, suffers for the forms of a lot of frame rate problems, especially noticeable with that level called, Tongue Twister. Yeah, it lagged a lot, especially noticeable, it's unpleasant to look at, so, but I digress. So as you know, it's about the fact that I'm very appreciated that, you know, as I said before, the replay feature is now returned, so that means I can able to show off to my friends of some of the most impressive stunts I can able to perform. The only time exception though is that I'm probably not going to able to activate the jump feature, because yes, technically the jump feature was included in this game. However though, you do need to unlock it somehow, and you have to spend it for about, I would say 30,000 points, which is quite ridiculously a lot, which as a result of that kind of stuff though, that totally breaks the challenge, which as a result, it might be recommendable for those who having some tons of struggles for certain stages, like for instance, in one particular stage coming up, until specifically next weekend as far as what I was going to be saving up for, that you probably already know what I'm talking about here, so... Anyway, so, oh, dang it, I somehow did not make it. Oh well, no big deal. But that's okay though. Anyway though, for the warp goal system in this game this time around though, it plays pretty much like the good old days basically. If you ever come across into, if you ever dare manage to go through the green goal, it actually takes you to the next couple of levels ahead. And then, especially noticeable if you come across into a red goal, it takes you even further to the forms of the certain progression for certain difficulties. So, however though, just like the forms of how it does in Super Monkey Ball 1 Let's Play, including Super Monkey Ball Jr. as well, I don't think we can probably be able to do that, because I'm just going to show you guys every single level's in challenge mode, and especially noticeable with how the fact that usually, relatively speaking, it's structurally very similar to, you know, the good old days, basically. So, it seems kind of weird that we always come across into Blur Bridge from the very beginning on every single extra levels, presumably. So, either way, though, I'm guessing because of training for that percent. So, and now we come across into a hard hitter, which, as you can tell, it looks pretty normal to me, except now we actually have ourselves two separate arrows indicating that we have to aim right at the goal itself, despite my timing is a bit off. So that's okay, because again, you can try again as many times as you want, so there's no need to worry about the forms of that massive penalty for not only just getting yourselves a game over or continue, and especially noticeable that there is no score system this time around, which I felt was a little bit of a so much of appreciation. So I think something tells me that the scoring system feels a bit archaic now, which that might be seems the reason about the fact that with Sonic Superstars no longer has the actual score total count. So at least if I'm guessing so anyway. Thus, in the puzzle level, as you can see, I just love performing certain shortcuts or skip certain portions of the level, so that way it just somehow saves my time. So, but yeah, there's not much else I can say about this for this point, guys. I mean, I would have liked able to explain something else for this matter though, aside from the fact that, well, Pikmin 4 is actually getting very close to its release. So, yeah, time flies. And on top of that, I somehow managed able to get with the poster with it too, so it makes things a little bit more, let's just say, colorful and vibrant as well. So because of that though, like, it kind of reminds me of the forms of one of those posters you get for not only for Ants, but also with A Bug's Life as well. So, yeah, you probably get the idea about that. So, anyway, so let's go and move on to that particular stage I was on about, which is of course Banana Plate, which I will admit though right away, this stage is a little bit more difficult compared to the forms of how it does it for AV Logo in my opinion, just because, my god, you have to go for a lot of like, so many nerve-wracking experience when it comes to able to try to dodge those edges that you can't afford to fall off. I mean, relatively speaking, that makes that stage a lot more harder, so... Oh, and by the way, every time when the announcer says final stage, this means about the fact that you basically come towards the end of that specific difficulty. So, yeah, not much explanation there. So, Parallel Large basically is like a larger version of Parallel as the actual stage applies. So, oh jeez, I totally forgot about this particular giant ring. It just goes like spinning around. And what I thought was a little bit stingy on my part is that the hitbox, it can be felt a bit slightly of a fickle at points when it comes to able to try to not to get touched by the phones of that particular ring. And as a result, whenever I manage to play this on my own time for a bit, it doesn't matter if it's on the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One versions, my god, I always get bumped into that particular stupid ring platform so many times. So, hopefully that might not be seen as the case on... Oh jeez, I almost lost control of myself, but thankfully we did somehow succeed on normal mode. So, yeah, it seems not too shabby for the most part, even though despite the fact that I somehow fell off for about 13 times. But that's okay, because again, continues or anything else is absent, like I said before. So, yeah, that pretty much does it for two different difficulties in Super Monkey Ball 1 Challenge Mode. So, and unfortunately my internet connection is lost again, so I definitely need to fix that. So with that said, we got the endings up at this point right here. So join me next weekend for more of Let's Play of Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania. And that is about the fact that we're going to be tackling through expert difficulty in Super Monkey Ball 1 Challenge Mode. So wish me luck, I guess. So I'll see you guys until next Saturday. Later, fellas.